Hello, and welcome to Summarize Science. We're often told to be worried about our private data being used to train AI. But what if the real-world risk of that data being exposed is much lower than we think? A concept paper titled, "How Worrying Are Privacy Attacks Against Machine Learning?" takes a critical look at this very question. The big assumption in many regulations is that releasing a trained AI model is almost as risky as releasing the raw personal data it was trained on. This has led to very strict rules, especially in places like the European Union. To see if a model is leaky, attackers use a few main strategies. The first and most common is the membership inference attack, or MIA. This attack tries to answer a simple question: was a specific person's data, like your neighbor Neil's, included in the training set? But the paper points out this is incredibly difficult for two main reasons. First, training datasets are rarely exhaustive, meaning they don't include every single person from a population. So, even if an attacker finds a data point that looks like Neil, it could just be someone else with similar characteristics, giving Neil plausible deniability. Second, if there are many similar people in the data, the attacker can't learn anything specific and confidential about Neil. Next, there are property inference attacks. These don't try to identify a person, but rather a general property of the entire dataset. For example, an attacker might try to figure out if a model was mainly trained on data from a specific country or demographic. While this might be embarrassing for the company, it hardly discloses private information about any specific individual. The most potent-sounding attack is the reconstruction attack, which attempts to literally recreate the original training data from the model. However, for complex data, this is like trying to guess a password by trying every single possible combination of letters and numbers. The number of possibilities is so massive that it becomes computationally infeasible to reconstruct the whole dataset. These attacks are most successful when a model is overfitted, meaning it has essentially just memorized the training data instead of learning from it. But overfitting makes for a bad, inaccurate model that companies wouldn't want to use anyway. Standard techniques to prevent overfitting also happen to make these privacy attacks much harder. There are other advanced methods, but they typically only work in specific scenarios like federated learning, where your phone helps train a model along with thousands of others. They aren't applicable to most centralized AI models you interact with daily. Plus, even when these attacks produce a piece of data, the attacker has no real way to prove it was part of the original training set. So, let's recap the paper's main points. Membership attacks are often inconclusive, property attacks don't target individuals, and reconstruction attacks are usually too difficult or only work in niche cases. The author concludes that the real-world privacy risks of machine learning seem to be less serious than what is usually assumed in the literature. What does this all mean for us? It suggests that extreme privacy defenses that hurt an AI's performance might not always be necessary. This could be great news for innovation, allowing for the development of powerful, trustworthy AI without sacrificing competitiveness. It opens the door for a more balanced approach to AI regulation. Thanks for watching Summarize Science.